Hi, my name is Jason from cirq-rentals, and today I'm going to show you how to set up the Takibi Hexa Tarp Medium by Snow Peak. And this tarp is a really cool product by Snow Peak. It's a US exclusive, and the Takibi line of tarps is really special because it includes a fire resistant and spark resistant inner tarp roof, and that allows you to set up a Takibi Snow Peak pack and carry fireplace and grill system underneath the tarp and still have a gathering, still have a fire pit, still roast s'mores under the tarp during the winter, during the fall, during the spring, when it's raining, or any time of year when it's raining. We love this product. This is available for rent or demo at cirq-rentals.com, and you can obviously check it out there or on snowpeak.com. But we'll show you how to set it up and talk a little bit about the tarp itself. All right, first we'll take inventory on all of the parts that we have here in our tarp bag. It comes as a set, the Hexa set medium, which is really cool. You don't have to piece together all of the poles and guy lines and everything else that you might when you just buy a tarp by itself. So you're gonna have two 10-meter guy out lines. You're gonna have two 3-meter guy out lines and two 2-meter guy out lines. We'll set those aside there. You'll have two poles. They are differing in length. You have a 280 centimeter pole, your tall pole, and you have a 240 centimeter pole. And they're color coordinated so you can match up kind of where each pole goes, but it's just important to recognize that you have two different pole sizes. We've got a stake bag, and Snow Peak provides really burly stakes with this setup, which is really nice, especially if you're using it in the winter or in rainy, windy conditions. You want a really good, stable anchor point, and these heavy-duty stakes do the trick. Those are fantastic. And then you'll see your inner roof, and this is the spark and fire-resistant inner liner for the tarp. This is what helps you and allows you to have a campfire underneath your tarp. And then last but not least, the main body of the tarp. And you could of course use this by itself if you're not going to use a fire pit underneath the tarp. It's still a great shelter, provide plenty of shade from the sun, as well as rain protection when you need that as well. All right, we're going to use this first. We'll kind of load everything else back up in the bag while we're setting up here. One of the first things I like to do is get my poles set up. So I'm going to assemble those right now. That way I can keep track of which is which. And here you can see the difference in the height of the poles. So you got your 280 is your taller pole, that's sort of like your front pole, your entry pole. And then the 240 is the shorter pole, and that would be the rear pole. They are color coordinated as to where you connect them on the tarp. Now when setting up the tent, the tarp, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is open it up kind of in half and lay it on the ground. And that gives you a really good idea of how much space you're going to need for your setup. It also helps you grab your color coordinated connection points. So I know that the red connection point goes in the front. That goes with the 280 centimeter pole. And the black connection point for your main pole will go in what I would call the rear of the tarp. So kind of set it up like this. And this will give us a sense of the coverage area. This is important if you know you want to center it over a specific spot. You know, if you have a fire pit that's already fixed in the ground, you're going to want to make sure you configure this the right way. Or if you got a really nice level flat section that you want to make sure you're using, you'll want to set this up ahead of time and make sure you know where everything is going to go here. Now it can be helpful to go ahead and set up your stakes ahead of time. And this is going to be our main front pole here. And from your center point, it can be helpful to just use your 240 centimeter pole, and you're going to set this down and use it as a way to gauge the distance. Roughly about a pole length, or a little less than a pole length, is about how far out you're going to want your stakes, and you're going to do these at 90 degrees from each other. So you can basically use this as a way to set your stakes in the ground. So we'll go ahead and set those front stakes first, and we'll just walk this basically over at a 90 degree to give us our other point. We'll repeat that process on the back. And now our guy out lines have tensioners already attached to them, and they have a center point. And so you're first going to want to just unwind everything and find that center point. All right, so that's what your center point's going to look like right there. That's what you're going to put over the top of your tarp pole. And then you see here we've got the red ribbon. We know this one is the tarp that goes in the front. And you want to make sure that you got your tarp right side up. We're going to go ahead and slide that in, and then we are going to hook this right over the top of our pole there. And then I like to go ahead and run my lines out. Especially if I'm setting it up on myself. And then you'll just walk your tarp pole up like so. And you see we've already got our lines kind of pre-configured here, which is nice. Give it a little bit of tension there. And we'll go ahead and do the same thing on the back side. And you want to give a little bit of a sag. The tarp has a beautiful curve to it, and so you don't want to, ridge line it really hard. That'll make it just really straight. So give it just a little bit of a sag there as you're tensioning your lines, and you can of course adjust later on. And now we're just going to stake out the rest of our anchor points here. You're going to do your 2 meter guy out lines on your lower section and your 3 meter guy out lines on this higher portion of the tarp. And of course you could use poles on this end too if you wanted to raise up one side or the other to allow for better access in and out, better standing height. So that's easy to do. You just need a couple extra poles to do that. Probably gonna want that stake right about here. All right, so now we're just gonna do our sides of our tarp here, and we're just gonna loop our 2 meter guy line through here. Just gonna tie a simple slip knot. You could also use a stick or a carabiner. Many ways you could attach this, but the simplest way would be just to do a simple little slip knot here. Run this out to our stake. All right, now we can go along and kind of retension everything. Do our sides first, and then we'll adjust the top. All right, and then we have the main setup on the Takibi Tarp Hexa Set Medium. This is not yet including the inner Takibi fire-resistant tarp liner. We'll show how to set that up in a moment. But this is just the primary setup on the Takibi tarp with the guy lines out. Of course, you could go ahead and put poles on the sides if you wanted to and raise up one or both of the other sides. And you could, of course, use different pole heights and configurations, depending on how high or low you wanted the tarp to be. But this is a great overall setup. set up. It provides shade and coverage for about 4 people, gathering, cooking, eating, hanging out, whatever you might need that extra space for. And then you can affix this kind of in the same area as your tent or away from your tent, depending on what kind of campsite configuration you want to build. Okay, now we're going to install the inner roof on the Takibi tarp, and this is the inner roof that prevents sparks and flames and embers from melting holes or catching your tarp on fire. And you're going to find these, I like to keep them clipped to the tarp inner body, but they're little buckle straps and they have a little pole grommet on one side. And you're going to go ahead and put those on the pole loops at the top of the tarp. If you knew you were going to be using it or you thought you were going to be using it, you could go ahead and do this before you put the tarp up, but it's pretty simple to do after the fact. You're just going to slowly loosen and lower the tarp poles down. And one nice little pro tip is to get something, a stake or a leaf or something, and put it at the base of the pole so you remember exactly where that base of the pole was when you put it back up. And if you do that, it's pretty quick and easy. And so we're going to grab a couple of leaves right here. We'll put one on our front pole here, and we'll tuck one on our back pole as well. Right there, so we remember exactly where those go. Just like your main body of your tarp, your red ribbon is going to go in the front here on your longer pole, your 240. So I'm going to just gently loosen this pole and slowly lower it down to where I can reach it. Here. And I'm going to want this on the underside because we're going to keep the inner body on the inside of the tarp. I'm going to loop that back over, loop my pole, sleeve back over. We'll turn this so it's on the inside here, like that. And now I can slowly walk my tarp pole back up to where I was before. And just gently put it back in place. No big deal at all. We'll do the same process in a moment when we're ready to clip the tent body in. So same thing here. We'll go ahead and walk this tarp down too, this pole down as well. Okay, so now we're going to clip the Takibi inner liner on the tarp itself, and we're just going to look for the color coordinated ribbons. We want to make sure that the buckles face down so that we're able to adjust those from underneath the tarp, like so. So I'm going to start on this one here. I might need to lower that a little bit. All right, there we go. I'm gonna walk this one back up a little bit tighter. And we wanna make sure that we don't twist that ribbon too much as you walk it back. Looks like we're good there. This one's also facing down, so we're in good shape here. I'm gonna go ahead and clip that. Adjust this and tighten it a little bit. Now you want this to be tight enough that the inner liner is not sagging too much. You don't want it to be close to your campfire or your sparks and embers, so you do want it to be pretty tight, but you don't want it to be so tight. If you tighten it too much, it'll start to wrinkle and buckle the outer tarp, and you don't want that to happen. So you got to be a little bit careful as you cinch these down. We'll do the front one first there, and I'll do the rear as well. This one's easier to reach, so I usually do this one second. All right, there we go. And now on your corners, you're gonna have little hooks. And you're just going to want to hook those into the hooks that are provided on the outer tarp. So we'll just hook those. You want them to face down. The hook faces down so that you're not in a position to have the hook rubbing on the outer tarp, creating wear, possible holes in the outer tarp. We don't want that. And these are on a little bungee cord, so it's a little easier to stretch this out and get it fixed into the right position. And I think I'm going to go ahead and loosen the top a little bit before I do this. And now we have the inner liner installed, the inner tarp installed on the Takibi system. And this is the aramid fabric that is spark resistant, flame resistant, which allows you to have a campfire under here and have 4 of your friends hanging out underneath the tarp, family underneath the tarp with a campfire, in the rain, camping, in the backyard, whatever. Great tarp by Snow Peak. We're really excited about this one, and it helps extend your outdoor season and your camping season into the rainier or cooler months. Okay, now to take down the Takibi Hexa tarp set, it's really just the reverse of setting it up. I'll talk you through it, but it really is just the reverse of setting it up. You do want to make sure you fold things the right way to kind of keep track of things, and I like to store the poles in separate bags within the pole bag, so it's really easy for me to quickly see which one is the taller pole versus the shorter pole. But that's about it. I'm going to get to it, and we'll stop the video and chat a little bit when I'm doing something important. First things first, we're going to loosen the hooks on our Takibi tarp inner liner. Next, we're going to walk our back pole down. I want it to be just loose enough that I can either unclip it, or in this case, since we're taking the whole thing down, I'm just going to take that inner pole off completely. And with that top section still connected, you can almost kind of fold it and try and keep it out of the dirt and mud as much as possible here. Gonna kind of drape it there. Now lower this pole slightly, just so I can reach it. There we go. I think in this case, I'm just gonna unclip it so I don't lose the whole pole and tarp system. Now there's a better way to fold this, and if the ground wasn't so wet and muddy, I would just be laying this out and folding it nice and flat. Since the ground is wet and muddy, I'm gonna kind of do the best job I can here, and then we'll, of course, like anything, we'll air it out after the fact when we get back home. And then I'll repack it and make sure it's packed nice and tight and rolled properly. That's the inner liner. I'm going to go ahead and clip the buckle to the tarp, to the inner liner of the tarp, so that I keep that together. I always want to keep those connected so I always know where they are. So we'll set that up next. All right, next we're going to pull our side stakes and our side guy lines so that the tarp will fold together nice and flat. All right, at this point we're ready to lower the tarp. All right, so now we'll fold the tarp up, and we'll start with the inner tarp liner, and we're going to fold the 2 sections separately. That way, depending on the next use of our tarp, we can either use just the outer tarp, or we could use the outer tarp and the inner tarp. And your first step is going to be to fold it into thirds, and you want to kind of, actually, you want to fold it right at the point of the wings. So line up your folds with each of these low points, your stakeout points that are lower on the tarp, and that's going to be your first set of folds there. All right, we've got that. I like to keep my clips attached to the tarp just so I always know where they are, and so we're going to leave those attached there. Kind of straighten it out as best we can, remove as many wrinkles and folds as we can. And now we're going to fold it into thirds again from both of the ends. So we'll fold it from here over, and then one more time over like this. All right, got our first fold there. And now we'll go ahead and do our second fold from the ends in. Your tarp as clean as possible. The inner tarp is a little more likely to hold moisture. It's also more likely to hold odors and to wear over time. So I try and keep it as dry and clean as possible. All right, so now we have it folded in thirds, and now we're just going to roll it from the top here. I'm gonna tuck my strap in there, and we'll just roll it in from the top. All right, there we go. And now we have the inner body ready to go back into our tarp bag. All right, and now we're gonna repeat the same process with the outer tarp. Start by folding it in at the wings. And there we go. We have our outer tarp ready to go into our tarp bag. Now, of course, we want to make sure that our stakes make it back in. Instruction manual in case you need that. Our guy outlines. And then last but not least, our larger pole bag. I like that on top because that's usually the first thing I take out and start putting together. That's our Takibi Tarp Hexa Set Medium by Snow Peak. This tarp and all of the products featured in our videos are available for rent or demo at cirq-rentals.com. I'm Jason, and thanks for watching.